Hello everyone, Chapter 101 here. Today I'm going to do a video on Scorpius Rex versus therizinosaurus. Now if you watch my channel, you know I just reviewed a animation by EGM on Scorpius Rex versus therizinosaurus. So this kind of made me want to do this video and see who would really win in a fair 1v1 fight, who would win in a battle. So let's get into what exactly both of them did in their own respective films or series. So the Scorpius Rex is a first hybrid made by Dr. Wu, and it was not really because Masrani saw how ugly it looked. It wasn't really that pleasing to the eye. It was just not what Masrani was looking for, so he told Dr. Wu to put the Scorpius Rex in cryogenic freeze, which he did, because, well, actually, no, he told him to terminate the Scorpius Rex, and Dr. Wu was just like, nah, I don't want to terminate it. So he just put in cryogenic freeze, and on Jurassic World, after a while, the power and such started to shut off, allowing the Scorpius Rex to thaw out, and allowing it was seemingly a younger Scorpius Rex, looking at how the tube it was in didn't seem that big, so I'm assuming that it was, like, really still young at this stage. So when it, got free, it most likely was small, and then it grew back to, the size we see it in a series. But, keeping on, we see it just murdering dinosaurs. It kills Gallimimus, kills everything, Ceratosaurus, Parasaurolophus, attacked Bumpy's herd, even tried to attack the campers, which just as when it was about to kill them, it ended up getting distracted by a noise, and it runs off. And, also, when it comes down to the Scorpius, when it was chasing them, it chased them in the visitor center, and it gets into the kitchen, is attacking them. They light a fire, they, turn on the stove, the fire comes on, the Scorpius Rex gets distracted by the fire, and they all run for their lives to be cornered by Blue. And then, as Scorpius Rex comes in, it turns out that there's now both Scorpius Rexes, because Scorpius Rex is able to reproduce asexually, are now in the visitor center. Both Scorpius Rexes are fighting, while Blue is, fighting as well. It's a free-for-all. It's a free-for-all among them, and they're just going back and forth. Sooner or later, Blue realizes that the visitor center is collapsing. So she takes the smart route and runs out, leaving the two Scorpius Rexes as they're fighting amongst each other, parent and offspring fighting, as eventually the visitor center collapses on top of them, killing them both. And now that's a really tragic story when you look at the fact of how they were like the first hybrids, and how it literally went out of its own way to kill its own offspring, and the offspring was trying to kill it just because it's mental ailments and such that just makes it so highly aggressive. But now let's get back to let's go to the therizinosaurus. So we see in Jurassic World Dominion, we're first introduced to the therizinosaurus as it's just wandering around in the Biosyn swampy area, Biosyn Valley, and it, we see it walk past Claire, and it does seem to be blind, looking at how its eyes are all milky white, and how it doesn't even notice Claire when she's like right beside it, and it just kind of walks right past her, and it makes these clicking sounds. And as a deer is in front of it, munching probably on some of its favorite plants, it easily swats the deer, sending it flying. Then it starts to eat the plants that the deer was eating. When Claire unbuckles herself from her parachute that was stuck in a tree, she falls, and that attracts attention to therizinosaurus. It immediately tries to track down Claire, but seemingly because it's blind, it can't exactly see her. So it's just kind of walking around, making clicking sounds, following Claire's noises as well as she's crawling. But she does manage to crawl into the water, which, as therizinosaurus can't exactly, probably can't exactly hear her. It just smells water. After roaring to probably make Claire run or, make a sound, and she probably doesn't, it just kind of wanders off and minds its own business. And then we see it next in after the Giganotosaurus defeats Rexy, and Therizinosaurus is munching on plants again when the Giga's stomping around and such attracts his attention. The Giga roars and the Theria roars back as it's hearing a stomping, the feet. Giga's a pretty big dinosaur, so it's hearing the Giga's footsteps and the growls of the Giga. So it's roaring and puts its claws up in a defensive position. The Giga keeps lunging in, and each time it does, Theria is able to hold it back with its sharp claws and is slashing at it. I think the Giga manages to break off one of its claws, I believe. By biting it, it manages to break off one of its claws, but it doesn't seem to really hold the, doesn't seem to really handicap the Theria too much. They're still swinging, and as the Therizinosaurus is still fighting, eventually Rexy gets back up, distracting the Giga, allowing the Theria to get one good hit on the Giga's leg. And now as the Giga is distracted again, this allows Rexy to lunge in and grab the Giga around his throat, pushing the Giga right into the Therizinosaurus's claws, now allowing, the Theria to pretty much land the finishing blow. And, well, the Giga drops dead, and we see, the Theria and the Rex both roar in the victory over the Therizinosaurus. Over the Giga. And that's pretty much it. This is the last time we see it. So, now let's get down to, the nitty-gritty. So, first, let's go for weaponry and strength. Well, for one, the Scorpios Rex is pretty strong. It's shown to be able to, take down sauropods, easily overpower Ankylosaurus and Ceratosaurs. And for weaponry, it has, jaws, its claws, has a toe claw like a velociraptor. It also has poisonous quills, but looking at how one of these was able to, almost cause a Sinoceratops to collapse, like Darius had to literally pull that one quill out of its tail. It's shown that these quills are definitely pretty dangerous, and this is something Therizinosaurus would have to look out for, but since it's blind, it can't really look out for them. So, for the Therizinosaurus, when it comes down to strength, it definitely is pretty strong, because when Rexy grabbed the Giga, remember, she's running, right? She runs, grabs the Giga, and she's running. Her momentum pushes the Giga into the claws of the Therizinosaurus, and the Therizinosaurus is able to hold the Giga up. Remember, the Therizinosaurus probably wasn't even expecting this. All the Giga's whole weight is slamming down on it, and its arms are still able to, hold it up. It's still able to hold up the, it's still able to hold up the still able to hold up the Giga until eventually the Giga just, body goes limp, and the Giga falls, allowing, Therizinosaurus to pull its claws out and roar in its victory. And other than, also swatting deer, and it was able, its claws are definitely strong enough to smack around the Giga, because we just see as the Giga, every time it gets hit, the Giga definitely was feeling these hits. It was getting pushed around. So I think because Scorpios Rex was easily able to ragdoll Blue, and also another Scorpios Rex around the same body build, if not a little lighter, and it was easily able to smack each other around, throwing. Definitely the Scorpios Rex also can jump and climb. And looking, I think that strength would go to the Theria, right? Therizinosaurus, but weaponry I think would go to the Scorpios. The Therizinosaurus really only has its strong beak and its claws. Other than those two weapons, it's pretty much it. And plus, you have to look at its blind as well. Now for intelligence, so the Theria doesn't seem to be too incredibly intelligent when it comes down to its problem solving. It's partially probably because it's partially blind, so it probably has a less understanding on what the world really is. And when it comes down to it fighting, you have to understand that's probably not too much of a good fighter, looking at how like it was pretty much helpless against the Giga, and certain when it comes down to intelligence, it really just doesn't seem to be too smart. But the Scorpius has shown some problem solving when it comes down to like how it hunts. Like it's smart enough to learn tactics of like climbing up on objects to jump down on its prey. Even in the kitchen, or when it's like outside of the kitchen and it was trying to open up the door, it ends up having to it tries to open the door, but it fails at it and eventually just decides to bust down the door. It knows how doors work, or at least somewhat of how they would work, but just didn't after it failed once, it's just like, oh well, I'm not doing this shit again. It just busts the door down. So I think intelligence would go to the Scorpius. Now for battle experience, we really don't know too much about how the therizinosaurus was raised. Now, I would assume that the Scorpius probably has a lot more battle experience, looking at how many more dinosaurs it kills. Though the theory is pretty aggressive, so it probably definitely has some enemies around, maybe fought the Giga before, but definitely feel like when it comes down to battle experience, Scorpius Rex would also take this. So now for speed, no, let's go for durability. So, who is more durable? Well, we don't really see the theory taking too much damage on its body. One of its claws got bit onto by the Giga, and it definitely, I think, broke one of its claws off, or at least cracked its claw. I definitely do think, looking how skinny its neck if the Giga gets its jaws around the neck, or even Rexy, if they get their jaws around the Giga's neck, it's pretty much over, and I could see something like this happening with the Scorpius. No, definitely a theory is definitely good at putting itself in a defensive position, but again, it's facing opponents that are not as fast or as agile as it. So, you have to look at that too. So, when it comes down to durability, the Scorpius was able to take lots of bites, scratches for Blue, other Scorpius Rexes, or other Scorpius. Was able to, take many melee, and it seems to be able to take a good physical, impact, like getting slammed in an object doesn't seem to affect it much. Definitely, if it gets hit by the claws, I definitely think it would get cut. But also, you do have to look at the impact force behind it. And since Scorpius Rex does seem to have a pretty strong skull and brain and everything to be able to take these impacts without being like temporarily dazed or knocked out, definitely feel like the Scorpius would definitely, I feel like durability, because it's just how much bigger the theory is. But we have seen Scorpius Rex take down sauropods, and most likely that also goes to its strength too, which I forgot to mention, or if I did, just pretty briefly. But definitely durability, I feel like it's equal between the two, because of just how much bigger the theory is than the Scorpius. It probably has, Scorpius will probably take a lot more damage, but it'll probably get damaged a little bit easier, but it's just so much bigger. So now with speed and agility, I definitely think these two are pretty obvious. Both of these would go to the Scorpius. For one, it's just able to climb up trees. It's able to run extreme speeds. Able to get from one side of the island to the other extremely quickly. Able to run through trees. Good at climbing. It definitely, if it learns quickly that Tetheri's claws are extremely dangerous, it would just climb up somewhere above it and just leap down, or it would just automatically do this. And if it does this right, it could, possibly get the theory in some trouble pretty early on. So, speed and agility definitely would go to the Scorpius. Now, at this point, who do I think would win in a head-to-head confrontation? I definitely think, because looking at what they both have, let's go for what the therizinosaurus has. So the therizinosaurus equals the Scorpius out in strength, gets strength, and gets ties him in durability. But everything else when it comes down to weapons, Scorpius, intelligence, Scorpius, speed, agility, Scorpius, battle IQ, Scorpius. Now let's just put the situation in like this. Because the Therizinosaurus is blind, this really makes me think it would struggle. Now, if it wasn't blind, I could definitely see this being a lot tougher of a fight for the Scorpius. But because it is blind, now just hear me out here. Just imagine a situation like this. Therizinosaurus is walking through Biosin Valley, minding its own business, trying to find some good leaves to eat. And it probably would smell something, but looking at how the Scorpius Rex has heat vision and, definitely is able to hear things from miles away, it probably already have the Therizinosaurus on its sights. And once it sees the Therizinosaurus, it will probably already be like high up in a tree, and it will probably just wait for the right moment as the Therizinosaurus blind would probably maybe smell something, but it probably wouldn't exactly know where it was. And probably smelling something would raise up its claws and probably shriek out, trying to make it, whatever it is, to make a sound so we can see where it is or hear. I could definitely see the Scorpius Rex not even making a sound before it leaps, and you could hear it probably screech as it leaps through the air, and it will probably leap on the back or grab the neck of its opponent, the Therizinosaurus, and if it does, it will probably rip into the neck. And if Theory's arms, if the Scorpius Rex stays on its back, probably wouldn't even be able to help it much. The only two ways Theory could possibly get him off is because its neck is pretty long. So if it uses its neck to reach back there, because it does have a good firm bite, looking at how the Giga was able to feel this, I definitely think that the Scorpius Rex would definitely feel this, and it would cause him to roar in pain. Maybe enough that if it grabs his foot or hand, it could pull him off. But other than that, if it does, now let's say it does manage to get him off. Now it has to somehow, swing. Remember, the Giga and the Rex aren't exactly extremely fast, big, dinosaurs. But the Scorpius Rex is extremely fast and extremely agile. And plus, it can easily just climb back in a tree and get out of the Therizinosaurus' reach. So definitely, I feel like when it comes down to these two, the Therizinosaurus would probably, get overwhelmed looking at how it's blind. Now definitely I feel like if it definitely gets a good few blows on Scorpius, it would cause him a good amount of damage, but probably not enough to put him out of commission in 3 hits. I think one way the Therizinosaurus could win is if the Scorpius Rex climbs up a tree and leaps down, because it has aggressive nature, leaps down, and the Therizinosaurus is able to, hear him and moves his claws into another defensive position, and it raises them up enough so it, skewers to Scorpius Rex right on these claws. This is definitely one way it could win. Or if it's able to, hit the Scorpius and knock him over, it just starts to stab him repeatedly, it'll probably kill him. But this is all depending on, the fact that Therizinosaurus has to, severely wound him or just be lucky. The Scorpius Rex, if it goes for the throat, or plus you also have to look at those poisonous quills. If even 3 of those poisonous quills get deep into its skin, they'll probably slowly start to weaken it. We don't exactly, because looking at how 3 of them knock Sammy out in less than a minute, 3 or 4 of them would probably knock out Theory, or at least daze it in probably a couple of minutes, which most likely this fight is going to be more or less the Scorpius dodging the Therizinosaurus claws. The Therizinosaurus would probably swing, each time it would probably hear a sound, it would swing and bite at the air, probably trying to back itself in a corner so that the Scorpius Rex can't get behind it. Most likely, the Scorpius will probably go for the throat. And looking at how it loves to climb up and jump, it probably will be able to just jump on the side of the Theory and claw at it then, or grab the neck of his opponent and just rip out the throat. Definitely feel like the Scorpius Rex would have a lot of a more. I think the Theories, if it wasn't blind, would probably be a lot harder of a dinosaur for the Scorpius Rex to fight. But since it is blind, and that does kind of hamper it a little bit when it comes down to its fighting skill, definitely the Scorpius Rex will probably, if it can get its jaws around the throat, or those quills can get in the side or embedded in the skin, it's pretty much over. I mean, I feel like this fight's a little bit closer, but I definitely feel like the Scorpius Rex would win like 70% of the time, just because of the fact that if this fight starts out and then Scorpius Rex is already in a tree, if it plays its cards right, it could kill the Theory in a couple of moments. If it leaps down, grabs its jaws around its head and uses those sharp claws to rip at the throat, or just leap down, grab the throat, and let its weight and momentum just tear open its throat, that's pretty much it. The fight will be over in a matter of seconds. Definitely, though, if Theory wasn't blind, this fight will probably be 50-50. Just because it's able to see where the Scorpius Rex is going every time. And then the Scorpius Rex definitely is shown to be pretty stealthy. And looking at how stealthy it is, it definitely would be able to, attack it, and it would definitely probably be able to disappear pretty quickly. So yeah, I see in this fight Scorpius Rex winning. So this is my point of view on the fight. Subscribe, and I guess I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.